representing law enforcement action partnerships that I've been part of for many years. And on behalf of, so I am Eric Sterling, on behalf of the Law Enforcement Action Partnership, we endorse your effort, Congresswoman, to end federal marijuana prohibition with the introduction of the States Reform Act. Recently, I served on the Maryland Medical Cannabis Commission under Governors O'Malley and Hogan in creating Maryland's legal medical cannabis industry. But in the 1980s, I was the anti-drug counsel for the House Judiciary Committee when Ronald Reagan was president. In the 1980s, when I worked for the Congress, conflict between Democrats and Republicans was very intense, and the parties competed for the title of toughest on drugs. But that approach didn't work. Deaths from illegal drugs have risen from 6,100 in 1980 to almost 100,000 annually. None of those deaths are due to cannabis. The nation's law enforcement community recognizes that regulation and control of marijuana for medical use and for adult use makes sense. A PEW Research Center study found that 68% of the officers surveyed supported either the legalization of medical cannabis or adult and medical use. Today, law enforcement support for marijuana legalization is almost certainly much greater. The Law Enforcement Action Partnership has always understood that marijuana prohibition is unenforceable. We have watched as the American people, year after year, rejected the arguments for prohibition. We have learned that the public health rationales for marijuana prohibition were false. We have seen marijuana enforcement alienate many young adults and people of color from our system of law and justice. We lament that marijuana enforcement does not prevent crime or increase public safety. Marijuana enforcement now wastes the time of police officers, prosecutors, and courts, and wastes billions of dollars annually. Every day that marijuana remains illegal, almost 1,000 people are arrested on marijuana charges. If you believe the FBI, in 2020 that number was over 350,000. For most of those people, mostly poor people, disproportionately people of color, a marijuana arrest is an economic catastrophe, if not an economic death sentence. A marijuana arrest usually results in the loss of a job, homelessness, family breakup, and long-term unemployment. It's on the majority in the Congress, so many of whom regularly tweet about the legalization of marijuana, to send a bill to the White House. The introduction of the States Reform Act is more evidence that a bipartisan bill could have been passed months ago. Since the Democrats took over on January 20th, hundreds of thousands of lives have been thrown into chaos because of marijuana arrests. And every day of delay, nearly 1,000 families are hit with a marijuana prohibition disaster. This act, the States Reform Act, is a great step forward toward a just and workable system to reduce crime, money laundering, tax evasion, and corruption. This smart bill, with its well-considered taxation level and with expungement provisions, is going to make economic sense for American families and American workers. The Law Enforcement Action Partnership commends Representative Mace and her co-sponsors for their genuine leadership.